Welcome to the July edition of the Kernel Journal. I'm George and this is Whitney. Wanted to take the opportunity to come out to the field here and have a look at the crop and assess where we're at. So it's July 7th today, first thing in the morning, and we're very happy with the development on this crop. The old saying is knee high by 4th of July. We're a little bit past that as far as the timeline, and as you can see, it's above my hip here, which has been really exciting to see the progress on this crop here. So in this episode, we wanted to talk about a couple things that we've seen around the countryside as far as some challenges and some opportunities. So one of the big topics that we've been asked by clients and what we've seen traveling around the countryside here is frost damage on corn. Kind of came to a bit of a surprise to us. On our weather station, we seen it get down to 3 degrees about a week ago. What we've been seeing is plants that have been turning yellow. Majority of plants, we're seeing some leaf damage, which the plant will grow through. But there has been some cases in some low spots and on some outside rounds where you're seeing that frost damage affect the whole plant and essentially is going to kill the plant off.
So yeah, as George said, that frost came through around June 22nd or 23rd. Lots of places were 0 degrees. He said here was 3 degrees. There was some areas that got down to -2 when we were looking at some other weather stations. And essentially, the frost damage looked like herbicide drift. We were questioning if all the counties were spraying at one point because it was just on the headlands for the most part. Once we got further into the field and seen those lower areas, obviously we realized it wasn't necessarily herbicide drift and something else was affecting it. Unfortunately, we can't do much about the frost damage other than hope the corn grows through it. Just remember that when you're looking at your field, look at the field as a whole. So the low parts and part of the headlands don't look so nice, but that's a small percentage of the field overall. So shouldn't have too terrible much of an impact on your yield.
So as discussed in previous Kernel Journals, one thing that we experienced about a month and a half ago was a massive amount of soil erosion. We've seen quite a bit down around Mountain View County, Lacombe and Pinoca. Some producers have opted to spray a nutrient package on their second pass with their glyphosate. So looking at these fields and evaluating, we definitely seen a positive impact with this. Corn that we were very concerned about is definitely rebounded and pushing back, although that we will probably see some yield impacts with it. But it goes back to corn is a very resilient plant, something that, like I said, we're going to keep an eye on and evaluate throughout the season. But these crops, definitely these little packages that have been added to the second pass for spray has definitely been beneficial, and we're seeing new leaf growth and good plant development. So as you can see with the crop here, we're definitely experiencing real nice canopy and good staging here. These are 30-inch row spacing, and takes a little bit longer to canopy compared to a 15. But we're seeing some good shading. Whitney did an excellent job with recommendations on the second pass here, and maybe you can get into a little bit more detail on what we did there.
So with second pass in the corn, we did glyphosate at 0.67 liters again. We also added in Lotus and Partner. We had some pretty big wild buckwheat and volunteer canola that we want to get controlled. There's some issues with first pass just with the dusty conditions that we sprayed in. So we wanted to get a little bit more control there. The corn did advance quite quickly, so we actually were pushing optimal staging or maximum limits for the crop stage based on what we are allowed to spray those products at. So to mitigate the damage that we've seen, we added more water to the tank. We were up to, I believe, 13 gallons of water, when usually you just go at around that 10. So if you do end up spraying past stage a little bit, best thing is to talk to the chem rep of those products and make sure that it's okay. But in some cases, just adding some more water will help reduce the impact that you see if you do go past stage a bit.
So one thing we're definitely watching this crop, as discussed previously, we did have a bit of hail damage, but you can see there's been some really good regrowth on these plants, and there's a lot of really nice vegetative structure on this crop. One thing we're definitely looking for too in everyone's crop is is at the leaves to make sure that there's no striping, which is an indication of deficiencies from a fertility standpoint. In general, I'm very pleased with what we're seeing on this crop. We're not seeing a pile of tillering happening, which is an indication that the primary plant is utilizing its nutrients. One thing to watch for in your field, and we've definitely seen quite a bit of it, you'll see some yellowing on the top of your plant. That's an indication that there's some rapid growth happening. Also, you'll see some stamping on the leaves, which is also an indication of rapid growth. We definitely seen that at the end of last week when we got a shot of moisture and some really nice weather. The crop really exploded and grew very aggressively at that point. So as far as variety evaluation here, we've been going through the plot. Mazex has sent us some new varieties, which we've been a part of helping to develop and evaluate to see if they're a good fit for our area out here. Currently, we're standing in 1340, which has been a variety which we've been working with producers with for several years. I would say going across the plot here, it's definitely, from a growth standpoint, one of the more aggressive varieties. One variety that's coming down the pipe is a spin-off of 1340, similar genetics, that's 1397. We've got that around the countryside right now with other producers. It's looking very good as well too. So as a company, what we do is we bring new varieties into the market. We start them out on a small scale just to evaluate, make sure they're a good fit, and slowly bring them out to producers. So 1397 is definitely something to keep an eye on. 1200, which a lot of producers are growing as well too, is looking very sharp. We have some new grazing varieties which are coming down the pipe here as well too, which we're seeing some very positive from a growth standpoint right now, and something that we're evaluating. We're in this plot quite frequently to make sure that we're being responsible bringing new varieties to the market. So coming up here, one key thing that we're going to be watching for is tasseling date. Getting closer to that timeline, we'll be observing the plot on a daily basis. Tasseling is very important characteristic to these plants. It's not the whole picture as far as maturity. Each variety will perform differently and set starch rapidly or slowly, but that's something that we're really keeping an eye on here within the plot. So with tasseling, we're watching silting, and then throughout the season and at harvest, we'll pull samples on this crop to get a good indication on starch and energy. Tasseling has been definitely a hot topic, and it is very important within a corn crop, but it's very interesting to see how these different varieties perform from an energy or a starch and a yield standpoint based off tasseling. We've seen some varieties that have tasseled maybe a touch later than some other varieties that have outperformed varieties that have tasseled before them.
So just to touch on tasseling a little bit more, when talking with our breeder, Sean Winters from Mazex, the tasseling date it's a factor, but it's not the most important factor. What they're actually looking for when it comes to genetics between each variety is your flowering date. So that's your 50% silk. When 50% of the plants have 2 inches of silk submerged, this is what we consider our 50% silk, and this is our days to flowering. That is your best indicator to the maturity of the crop, not necessarily the actual tasseling date.
So this is a really fun time of year in the crop production cycle. Walking through crops, you can see the work that you put into it from spraying and fertility and how it's impacted the crop, and it's pretty cool to see how aggressively this crop grows. On the weekend here, we got an inch of rain, which has been excellent. We're expecting some heat to come here midweek as well too. So we're expecting to see crops around the countryside here really stretch out. And like I said, it's a really fun crop to grow. We're very optimistic on how this crop looks right now. One thing that we really wanted to mention too, if there's folks coming into Ponoka that would like a tour of the crop, please give us a shout. We'd love to walk you through and show you different varieties and how they're performing, and talk a little bit more about what we did to get this crop to this stage here. And going down the road, if folks have any questions, please feel free to reach out to us, and enjoy the growing season.